twisting objects, elfish.
Greetings from Cyberdelic Space. This is Lorenzo, and I'm your host here in the Psychedelic Salon. So, after getting the previous two podcasts out in less than a week apart, you maybe thought that I was going to be more efficient at getting these programs out earlier in the week. And to tell the truth, I thought so myself. But for some reason, I just can't seem to get going these days. Probably because of the heat, and I don't do too well when it's hot. At least that's what I'm telling myself. Actually, I was thinking about going on a reduced schedule for part of the summer so I can get more work done on my new book. But so far, not much has been accomplished on any front. As my dear departed mother sometimes said, my get up and go has got up and went. But then three of our fellow saloners have prompted me to get back into the saddle again and get this podcast out. And they did so by sending in three very generous donations. Now that all of our expenses are covered for the next 45 days or so, I guess I'd better do my part. So a big thank you goes out to Albert S., Nustabox, and my fellow grandfather from the UK, Robert O. Thank you guys for helping out with the expenses of keeping these podcasts coming everybody's way, almost every week. And this week, as I promised in the last podcast, I'm going to play another one of Dr. Timothy Leary's talks. This time, I'm going to play one of the talks that he gave nearer to the end of his life. Now, I don't know the exact date of this talk, but in it he mentions that he was 71 years old at the time, and that would place it sometime late in 1991 or in 1992. And one of the things that caught my eye and caused me to select this particular talk is that it was given to a group in Orange County, California that goes by the name The Inside Edge. Now, you may have heard about them. In fact, in March of 2001, I gave a presentation there myself. And so I have a little idea of the venue, particularly the time of day that these talks are given, which is quite early in the morning. If memory serves me correctly, they gather about 6:30 a.m. and the talk begins about an hour later. And the audience, by the way, is composed of some of the brightest movers and shakers in the L.A. area. And so it was a pleasant surprise for me to hear the good Dr. Leary giving his presentation in exactly the same laughing, jocular way as we've heard him in the past. As several of our fellow saloners have pointed out to me, it sometimes seems that Tim Leary has maybe ingested something before giving one of his talks. But this time, due primarily to the early morning hour, I seriously doubt if he'd taken any drug other than caffeine, which I found to be in copious supply at the Inside Edge morning gatherings. No surprise there, huh? Now, let's try to imagine that it's very early in the morning. Dawn is just breaking, yawns are everywhere, and sleep is still in our eyes. And then Dr. Timothy Leary begins to speak.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I really do feel quite at home as I listen to this group sharing your goals and your experiences and sharing the attitude. I would not call this a down, depressed organization. I thank you for that. I feel that we have very much in common. I feel that there's very much we share. I'm not sure exactly what I can say this morning that you don't really know already, although there are little perspectives and facets and twists and new curlicues on the great spiral of evolution that keep us entertained. People ask me if I have changed in the last 30 years. Well, just to keep up with the rapid flow of events, you have to run as fast as you can. So that the question of change is something that's just part of our place and time. One thing has not changed, though, for me, And that is my basic posture, attitude, goal, life plan. For as long as I can remember, I have been influenced by a role model that has guided me and through my navigation of this amazing life. I'm a great follower of Socrates. I can remember when I was a young college student reading in one of these books of philosophy about this group of Greek people that would sit around in Athens. Instead of planning invasions of Persia or of Rome or whatever, they had this kooky belief that the aim of life was to know thyself. Knowthe Sueton. I'm not sure that's the correct Greek pronunciation, but I know what the translation is. That the goal of human life is to find out who you are and where you are going and to get a little better at this navigational problem. Now, when you think about it, that's a very subversive motto. I mean, in this room, it's just the bumper sticker of the day or the week. But back then, the very notion that you had a self was about as subversive. In the Persian Empire and the Babylonian Empire and the feudal empires, there was no such concept of an individual. Who are you to have the nerve, the audacity, the impiety, the heretical presumption to think that you have a self that you could possibly know about? You're a serf, you're a slave, you're a servant of God or whatever, of the king or the sultan. So that the very notion that there was a self to nurture and to help grow and to learn was by definition explosive. The idea that you could pass this on to other people can get you a lot of trouble. Socrates paid called the Hemlock solution for his audacity in urging young people to develop their minds, think for themselves. Corrupting the minds of young is a difficult job. God knows it's ill-paid. Somebody has to do it. And I have been a faithful practitioner of the Socratic. And by the way, as much as I think I oppose the federal government of the United States as much as anyone, and yet on the other hand, I think I share with most of you, perhaps all of you, the gratitude that this country, this land of North America has been a wonderful place for those of us who believe in the Socratic notions of individual divinity and so forth to be alive and growing, because I could certainly not have practiced my career as I have in the last 40 years in any other place. I would have ended up in Siberia or barbecued like Bruno. So that in spite of the fact that I am extremely critical, I yield to no one in my criticism of Washington, D.C. I do feel this is a wonderful time for change agents to be alive. There's something about Socrates that I think is worth mentioning. Not only did he give us the great bumper sticker, which, by the way, implies something else. It implies what we might call now inner potential or inner divinity. He's saying if you want to find the greater powers, the higher authorities, God, no matter what name you want to call her, you start by looking within, and certainly looking within and developing your own mind and your own approach is the way to do it. And I think that we can't repeat that slogan over and over again. I have been shocked, as I'm sure many of you have been in the last few years, to see, particularly after the 60s and 70s, this extraordinary return to barbaric superstition and fundamentalist religion. This notion that there's one God, and that one God is our God, and of course he's a male, and he happens to be a pretty pissed off male. all the people out there that don't agree with him are definitely so that I have been shocked. When you think of what happened in the 1960s and 70s, that now we look back and say, oh, well, it was just another renaissance. It's been happening over and over again. Time after time, the repression, the totalitarian systems, the authoritarian structures get so strong that there's I wouldn't call it an explosion because that's too violent. There's a sudden blossoming of humanism, of the ideas of individuality, of the ideas of creativity. It happened in the Italian Renaissance. It happened at certain periods, I think, in early American history. And we went through this. I have always suffered from two problems, myopia and just plain short-sightedness and narrow vision. I ended up growing up thinking that everybody was like me. And that is, obviously a mistake. No matter who you are, we tend to believe that everyone's going to be like you. If you like to go around and shoot buffalo, you think that everyone else wants to shoot buffalo. In my case, I thought that everyone would want to devote their lives to personal freedom and inner potential and sharing, you know what I'm thinking about. And, in the 60s we had even the Catholic Church began to change. I had my first few years exposed to Catholic teachings, and I thought it was pretty kind of funny, about the Immaculate Conception. I could never figure that one out, but I won't go into that. But in the 1960s, it's extraordinary. The Catholic Church in this country became a liberal organization. Remember the Berrigans and the South American Catholic leaders and the nuns. How about the Catholic nuns in the 60s and 70s? I couldn't believe it. And then now, in the 1990, can you believe the Pope? I mean, by the way, I must warn you, it's my job, but I have to make fun of every organized religion and political party. That's my job. And I'm very ecumenical here, and very tolerant in my intolerance of authority. If there's any organized religion or a political party I have not been irreverent towards, call it to my attention, and I'll think of something. So I've made 2 points about Socrates. Number one, of course, it's not just Socrates. Socrates and that group in Athens got it from the banks of the Ganges. They got it from Buddhism. They got it, these are the oldest and deepest motives of human life. They basically go back, I suppose, to the pagan religions with many gods, and based most of them, of course, feminine gods, so that it wasn't that Socrates invented this, but Socrates kind of organized it. And Socrates not only came up with this notion of individuality, of inner potential, inner divinity, kind of a distrust of authority, but also some very interesting methodological, psychological, nuts and bolts methods. If you think about the Socratic method, it was not just the goal. The method was this. Socrates never taught, never wrote a book. In a room full of authors. I know this sounds eccentric. But his basic technique was kind of ask questions and to make little funny observations designed to get us thinking, to get you thinking. He was not giving you the Ten Commandments, number one, I'm the only God, and you just blah, 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 and all that. I've always been amused by the 9th commandment. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. I mean, don't think about that too long, are you? It's all right about the husband, I guess. Anyway, But the method that Socrates used was get small groups of people together, aimed at, designed at, goaled for, geared for pursuing the basic questions: who are we, where are we going, how can we get there better, and so forth. Small groups of people dealing with the deepest problems of inner potential, and in a nice, comfortable place. It helps to have stimulants around. They used to lie around drinking wine. Apparently, it was very powerful wine, or in this case, sitting around with stimulants like caffeine, whatever. But the idea is there that it's a small group of people, and of course, the key to all of this, these notions of inner potential, inner divinity, know thyself, is the notion that you can't get too involved in or caught up in or co-opted by a big system. As soon as you belong to a system where you're not known individually and where you don't know individually the other people, you're by definition depersonalizing yourself and making yourself a robot cog of the big machine. And that's why it's so intuitively ingenious and natural and effective of this group. The first thing you do is you introduce everybody, you get to know each other, and I'm sure if you come to 3 or 4 of these meetings, you arrive at the position which is the affirmation of our individuality, that we actually recognize each other and like to see each other. So, goal, know yourself. Method, small groups. No leader, no commandments. Being, in a sense, is the basic scientific method of continually exploring. Another thing, many different points of view. Crito would have his point of view, and Plato would have his point of view. Let everybody speak. That's quantum physics, of course. You set up a field of interactive elements, and there's no one truth. The truth is what's up there is the interaction, the intersection, the interplay between the different points of view. And who cares if you're behind her, because that's part of she was there before. In other words, the thing keeps moving around with quick feedback. That you don't have to wait for 6 weeks and take a 6-week examination or that sort of stuff. That you saw immediately, the interaction, the byplay. These techniques, by the way, have guided my life. I became a graduate student at. I'm going to go off in a little digression here on my training, not because it gives me that much narcissistic pleasure, because I think that we're all in the same business, and you might learn from some of the situations I've been through. By the way, who's writing the book on disgracefulness? And I want to. We have got to talk. Okay. When I was a middle-aged person, they used to say, we middle-aged people used to say, well, youth is wasted. 71.
I'm 74.
74?
I like younger men, though.
Oh, right. It's only 8:30. Wait till we get warmed up. But I would say, you agree with me here. They used to say youth is wasted on the young. Because with our middle-aged knowledge, if we only like that. But I believe, maybe you'll check me out on this. I think that senility is wasted on the old. Really? You agree? Yeah. I mean, they've given senility a bad rap. There are a lot of upsides to getting older. It's true that we have some of the typical psychedelic symptoms, as a short-term memory loss.
Yeah, but it's because you've got so much in there.
Exactly. I mean, that's wonderful. See, the point is made here. If you understand about computers and computer files, you'll understand the problem here. I started using a computer about 10 years ago, and I've got a file that's March 1981, then April 81. You see, but I also got files of March 82, 83. In other words, I got so many files and also I've met so many people. And also I've met so many interesting people that just clogs up it's just a question of clerical confusion. And also you see so many things. Also, I think the older you get, if you keep keep your head above water or whatever, you see so many things, and everything's connected to everything else, right? So, some idea here, and immediately I'll see, so it's hard for me to write one paragraph, because after every sentence, it can go so many different ways.
That's why we need different types. We need, like, Roy Bullock. He's the organizer type.
All right. En français? No, you're French. Okay, yeah. All right. Very often, for example, I'll be down in my study, and I'll have something very important that I have to do in the living room, and I'll walk 30 feet to the living room, and by the time I've got there, I have forgotten what I was going for, but I will have recapitulated the history of the human species from the amoeba to Dan Quayle, right? Well, if I forget what I was talking about. I know. Okay, very good. Okay, yeah. Your energy, too. Okay, right. Hey, listen, we should take this on the road, you know what?
I didn't tell you, but we've already started.
I know, okay, right. I was going to say, yeah. I went to, in 1946, I became a graduate student in psychology. And in those days, you young people don't realize what we went through. See, this was the peak of the industrial age. And the aim of psychology was to help people be adjusted. Remember? And if you were well adjusted, that was it. And the worst thing you could say was someone was maladjusted, which means they were thinking for themselves. I remember, I don't know if none of you in this room can remember that, but there was a personality test called the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. And it was 550 questions you answer. Yes, no. Are your bowel movements tarry and black? Yes, no. Do you sometimes think you're a special agent of God? Damn right. You know. Do you sometimes have strange and unusual thoughts? Yeah, of course. Yeah. Do you sometimes obey rules of authority? Yeah, sure. Okay. So I took this test, and when I scored the test myself, and I looked at it. I said, oh, shit. Because I got the highest scores, almost the highest score possible, on something called psychopathic deviate. Not to mention schizophrenia. And femininity was up a little too much, too. I mean, really. So I immediately hit it, and I actually faked it and brought all these things down a bit. There's a friend of mine, many of you probably know his name, Professor Frank Barron, was one of the great writers on creativity, an Irishman, and we were having some beers one night, and I said, Frank, listen, I don't know whether I should go on as I feel like a fraud and a criminal here, because I don't know if I should be allowed to be exposed to other people with the record I got here. I pulled out this thing, I showed it to him. He looked at me, he said, wimp. That psychopathic deviant, of course, meant that you thought for yourself and you didn't always obey, blah, blah. Anyway, my PhD thesis, looking back on it now, was totally Socratic. I realized that it was not a good idea to have a doctor treating a patient, and the patient would come, and the psychologist would diagnose, and the social worker would analyze, and then a diagnosis would be given, and the patient would be either hospitalized or put on a couch, and this is any set of circumstances and rituals designed to make you feel impotent and small and helpless. It's this psychiatric process. So there was something called group stuff was in the air. It came actually from British Air Force studies of pilots and crews, group dynamics. And so I went to the head of the Palo Alto Veterans Hospital and said, listen, I want to do my PhD thesis on group therapy. And he looked at me as though I had proposed a thesis on cannibalism. He said, group therapy? Why, that is immoral. It's illegal. You can't have patients treating patients. Would you do that with surgical patients? Why, they'll infect each other with their own diseases. They'll corrupt each other with their own problems. The paranoid will get all new ideas from the obsessive compulsive. Anyway, I did do the thesis. It was done in counseling in a Unitarian church. The Unitarians were always very helpful in those days, probably still are. And then we also tried other techniques. One thing that always bothered me, I might say, the two things that I, politically throw out here that I've picked over the years. One is that the cause of a lot of problems that human beings have, both collectively and individually, is secrecy. And any time you have secrets, you are in trouble. I mean, it's called cover-up, and of course, all politics is secrecy. And that's what led to Watergate, that's led to the Iran scandal, and this and that. Not to mention, at any time in your personal situation, if you're keeping secrets, that erodes, obviously, it basically erodes the relationship you have with other people. I learned this back in the 60s and 70s when I was a little unpopular with the FBI, and they found this strange looking telephone men would come to our place and start fixing the telephone. And I thought about it and I said, good. I hope the FBI is listening to everything we say. It'll be good for them. Because and I never, although I did 4.5 years in prison and 2 years in exile and 2 years in parole and blah, 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 I never made any bones about my crimes. I said that I like to smoke marijuana now and then. And my other crime, the real crime was, I never was found with possessing marijuana. It was always someone, in one case it was my wife, in another case it was, they planted my car, but in any case, but the real crime they had me for was escape. Now, what can be more public than that crime? When I was being tried, it was kind of hard to prove I hadn't escaped, because there was the bunk check and I wasn't there, so. The point I'm making is that secrecy is, and I want you know this. I'm sure this. I'm preaching to the choir here, but there's such an enormous self-confidence you have if you have no secrets, nothing to hide. And the second generalization, I should stop here in a minute, but to throw out is, after many years of observing the political situation, I'm convinced that the real basic problem of politics and group relations and any kind of human relations, is the oppression of women by men. Because you get to racism, then that's terrible, but still, the black woman is the male-female works there. And no matter how you get up to the White House, the old WASP, there's George Bush and Barbara, but who's carrying the sneakers? Barbara. So that underlying, and of course, that's the in a way it's the most complicated. On the other hand, it's the simplest. I mean, if you want to start practicing politics, let's go to work on that. And I throw in a little observation here. I'm very, and I know that things are happening in the world today that are shocking, scandalous, unbelievable. The cruelty, the return to superstitious religion, and in Belfast and in Armenia and in Croatia and on, and religion, fighting. And then there are many good things happening. There is a younger generation which is communicating through electronics and through music and through dress and through and there is, and in this newer generation, I call them the new breed. It's global, it's international. They would say the robes, and there are the suits and the boots, and then the new breed who they wear exactly what they damn please. But there's an attitude, and there's a lot being said in the paper today about Japan. I've been to Japan 5 times in the last 2.5 years, and I'm the contributing editor to 3 underground Japanese youth magazines. But by underground, these are the slickest, most graphic jammed, hot thing you can't believe. This isn't no throwaway paper pulp, black, white stuff. So that one of the great things that I've learned just recently in the last year about Japan, there's been the problem that the Japanese are too much respect for authority and bowing and all that. But 2 things have happened which are extremely heartening. 10 years ago, the percentage of Japanese young men, college students who were majored in engineering, got on the Mitsubishi ladder, and they went out of that, and they were taught exactly what percentage to bow to each person they dealt with. Present time, I think it's about 17% of the brightest college students are in engineering. They don't want to work on Mitsubishi's farm no more. They don't want to climb on that situation. They want to go into foreign travel. They want to go into, what that means, by the way, in the last 10 years, the Japanese industrial empire has multiplied 10 times, so that suddenly, they think to line up and beg for a job, the companies are coming begging young Japanese students to come and work for them. Now that's a profound cultural revolution, more important, I think, than Marx. But more important than that is a change in the attitude of young Japanese women. Because, you probably know about it, it is thrilling to go out and see these young Japanese women, and they're criticized. The Shinjinrui, they're called yuppies, because they want to dress. They're very trendy, and they like to. They're changing all the time like that. And basically, they want to make their own decisions, and they're not going to go around in kimonos, bowing and scraping for their husbands. And again, these are almost genetically historical inevitabilities. It's because of the boom in Japanese industry. They need intelligent people to work for them. And who do they need? They need women. Therefore, they can't expect the women to be in kimonos and all that. So that I find these two very encouraging developments. That means 5 sentences. 5 ideas. This is a very wonderful group. I mean, really. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
if we can get the roving mic, we'll have some questions and answers. Okay.
Yeah. Hi. Do you keep in touch with your buddy Ram Dass, who's going to be talking close by here on Judaism and spirituality coming up in a few weeks? You still
hear that last? Yeah. What was that last thing you said? I know about Ram Dass, but then what?
Oh, he's going to be talking in a few weeks on Judaism and spirituality.
Where?
Up at the University of Judaism on Mulholland Drive.
Oh, good.
On a Sunday.
Baba Ram Dass, Richard Appleton will be speaking at the University of Judaism. I know where that is, up in Mulholland. Yeah. To answer your question, I see Ram Dass 2 or 3 times a year. He comes by my house, and we have split a bottle of wine or a 6-pack and have a joint or two. Whether we like it or not, it's our duty. I am extremely proud of him. We went in many different directions because, as we all are, we're very different people. I'm a troublemaker by definition. I just want to get people like that. And Richard Ram Dass is he makes for peace, and he exudes a wonderful sense of warmth, intelligence warmth, with an incredibly amusing Jewish sense of humor. He calls himself now a Hindu. And he's devoted, as you know, to programs of compassion and healing and helping with the blind and with prisons and with AIDS. And I sometimes say, Richard, you're going to run out of diseases. But he's doing well, and I certainly urge anyone who has never been in his presence or even have to go to the University of Judaism. He'll get a buzz.
Dr. Leary, I wanted to first say thank you to you that I have been following your career and your thoughts for 25 years, and thank you for saying whatever you've said all those years, first of all.
Thank you.
Why do you think that women have let themselves be kept down? My example is that most women wear very pointy shoes. As a person who helps people change their feet, people come to me with crippled feet, and I say, stop wearing high heels. They won't.
Yeah, that's the foot binding problem.
Why do we still do this? 1992.
Well, you and I know why. Because in the early cave days, the men were tougher and stronger and beat the shit out of them. That's why. And it still comes down to that. Those 2 cases, the Kennedy case and the Hill case, showed us that a male who is either socially superior to the woman or physically superior, late night, who's going to tackle whom on the lawn, it's his word against hers. And it's social power and physical power. And they... Oh, what?
How about vanity on the part of the woman?
Vanity on the part of the woman. Well, I think it's a pretty good thing. What about it? I don't know what you mean, but... Huh?
In regards to the pointed shoes.
Oh, that vanity. Oh, yeah. Well, no, we can't, obviously. We're going to get in here. Basically, I belong to the... I see no reason why women shouldn't dress up and put jangles, bangles, God knows anything you can make yourself feel better to do it. But I also feel the same about men, too. And if you got a great body and you want to strip down to a bikini, go for it, Joe. Or Joe's. I mean, consenting adults. Anyway, yes.
Dr. Leary, thank you very much today. It was wonderful. I'd like to ask you, if you had it all to do over again, what would you do more of?
I certainly would have fucked more. I mean, made delicate, powerful, sensual, erotic love more.
Dr. Leary, you spoke very critically against religions, which I tend to agree with.
Organized religion.
Organized religions. However, there's one religion called the Baha'i Faith, and I think they have a more enlightened approach, and I'd like your commentary on that particular group.
Well, the fact that they never tried to proselytize me or push me around, I'm in favor of them already. This is Baha'i. Everything I've heard about that it makes me feel, yes, I've never heard any example of them persecuted. They've been persecuted, right? Yes, so yeah. And what do we mean by words like religion? I remember I go to a lot of these New Age conferences, which are interesting. It's there, you get people coming together, the different things they're selling, and it's private enterprise in the best sense of the word, and massages and the different stuff. And I was being interviewed by a television reporter, and he says, "Well, do you call this religion?" And I said, "Well, I don't know what you mean. That's spiritual?" And he said, "It's so disorganized." I say, yeah. Yeah. The idea of organized religion, a bunch of men somehow get together and decide they're going to legislate a 15 billion year evolutionary process. Anyway. Yes.
Hi, Timothy. Oh, I'm going to ask the psychedelic question. After all these years and all this experience, beyond the veil, there's a world out there. Psychedelic world, ayahuasca, mushrooms, acid, you name it. Question is, after all your exploration and your wisdom with reference to it, could you make some comment about what's really behind that veil? What is it out there? Because it just seems so real, so powerful, so something. What is it that's behind that veil?
Well, of course, it's not just out there, it's in there. But we won't... we agree on that, yeah. Yeah. Well, I should have mentioned this. I forgot it. But I should write it down, right? With my zip code and phone number. Credit card, too, yeah. The brain. The 21st century, I think, is going to be the century of the brain. The brain is the taboo organ. We simply have been, for many reasons, unable to understand the brain, and basically the people that teach and educate don't want us to understand the power of the brain. The brain, we're told, is 100 billion neurons, and each neuron has the processing capacity of a big computer. Those are all carrying around behind our foreheads more information, wisdom, engineering possibilities than in all of the universities and computers in the world. And the wonderful thing about this concept of the brain is it's totally egalitarian. In other words, the dying child in Calcutta, the little kid in Africa, or the deprived, spoiled kid in Beverly Hills, they've all got the same brain that Einstein had, the same equipment. It's all in the software and the programming, and we all know about that. This is such a shockingly depressing thought on the one hand, and it's so optimistic on the other hand. If we now there are two. I have spent the last 20 or 30 years or more studying very certain aspects of the brain, and I find it useful to use. It's a corny division, and it's anatomically not correct, but the notion of left brain and right brain. Of course, the left brain is not really the whole left brain. The left brain and also I feel this, I think I've implied it, you can't really understand the brain unless you understand something about how computers store information, file information, or format files, open files, how you get trapped in word processing, fixing you can't get out, So there's a lot to learn about mental processing and left brain activities, and if you understand something about computing. The left brain, we are told, has to do with linear thinking, ordinal stuff, Euclidean, Newtonian. It's, in terms of Marsh McLuhan's figure as opposed to ground. You pull of all this jumble in this room, we pick out one thing, the microphone, and that becomes the figure. That's the left brain. The left brain, by the way, is probably mainly localized in the eyeball. so much goes on in the eyeball before the DOS systems, the CPUs, a lot of them are in the eyes. The decisions are made in your eyeballs. They decide what's going to get in the left brain, what's going to be disregarded, and so forth. The very notion, you see, of illumination, vision, introspection, perception, I mean, all the metaphors have been there for thousands of years, glorifying the power of the eye. I'm talking about your question, I think, about what's in the inside of the veil. My research for years before I got into psychedelics was an attempting to dimensionalize and to get better left brain functioning. Because we categorize and use words instead of dimensionalizing. Anyway, so there's the left brain. And what's called the right brain is where there's no figure, there's no order, there's no 1, 2, 3, there's no ABC, there's no Euclidean stuff. It's all a jumble. It's a mismatch of 100 billion multimedia graphic programs going brrrr, and the walls breathe too. You know what I'm talking about. Now, for thousands of years, people have known that there is this inner thing. There's a veil. Huxley talked about the doors of perception. It goes back to Blake. They've known that for the Hindu and the Buddhists. They all said, yes, there's a whole thing within you. You can get it, meditation and Tibetan Book of the Dead. Yes, that we now call that right brain. It's immersive stuff. Starting in 1960, I've been involved in right brain research because that's what See, there are two kinds of drugs. There are Republican drugs and Democratic drugs. Republican drugs are left brain drugs. They get you to order 1, 2, 3. Number one, if you want to start a war or loot and rape a saving and loans situation, definitely you don't want to have right brain drugs because you can't confuse the stockholders from the like that. By the way, I don't mean that. There are a lot of wonderful Republicans out there. I know that. So there's to answer your question. What you're talking about is right brain immersive experience, where suddenly there's no figure and ground. The microphone suddenly merges into a sea of faces, and the whole thing is moving and being inundated. That's right brain stuff. And I'm trying to give you an updated scientific answer to your question. I think there's going to be a breakthrough in our understanding of neurological functioning. I'm writing a book now called the Manual for the Care and Operation of the Human Brain. Want to help me on that?
Yes.
Okay. Chapter in our book, huh? Yeah. Okay. I think one more question. Oh, no, okay. We have one. It's time to go, I know, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting I didn't know you did most of your research on right brain, but I was going to ask you, why do I always feel better when I feel like I'm in my right brain? As opposed to my left brain. I mean, when I'm in an imaginative, creative state and I'm just off in total imagination land creating, why do I feel the best?
Well, see, it's the left brain that focuses on trouble. If you're out there floating around in the jungle and here comes an unfriendly lion, the lion is kind of camouflaged and in part of the whole lead, but you better focus on that lion. See, that's or that salesperson or that. You say you got to focus. So all the worry, all the concern, all the thought, most of the trouble comes from the left brain. In the 1950s, something wonderful happened. They developed left brain tranquilizing drugs. See, Valium and Miltown and all that stuff. Those are left brain drugs that quiet down the left brain. You know, I got all these troubles. I got there's a lion here and a tiger there, and there's my boss there, and then there's the banker there, and all that stuff. Take a Valium. Of course, the extreme of that are the narcotics where you get so far that you don't even care anymore at all. That's all to keep the left brain. Heroin is a device to quiet down the left brain. As a matter of fact, indeed, opium can kind of sweep you into, they say, right brain stuff, but basically heroin and downers just quiet down the busy. Richard Alpert has said it many times. He said, my mind is a crazed drunken monkey. I want to quiet down with meditation. so you feel better if you can quiet down your left brain. You can do it with tranquilizers or downers. Or well, if you take right brain substances. How many of you know Terence McKenna, huh? He's a shame, and I wonder I recommend him, yeah. He's written about right brain vegetables. There's a whole, when I talk to you about democratic drugs, I'm talking about right brain drugs. You know, the Democrats are simply too wimpish, and they see everything, they love everybody and all that. But you feel better with right brain because, again, the figure disappears and everything is kind of a wonderful, immersive, all is one. Except something can jump at you, and I can see this microphone is suddenly the muzzle of a gun. The point is that you're in danger with right brain of having your left brain pull in. But definitely, the aim, of course, is neither left brain versus right brain. Be able to move any part of your brain you want to. People ask me, "What's your zodiac sign?" I say, "Any fucking sign I want to be." Thank you. Good night.
You're listening to the Psychedelic Salon, where people are changing their lives one thought at a time.
Wasn't it interesting just now to hear Dr. Leary, sometime around 1991 or 1992, talking about the exact same thing that Aldous Huxley warned about in 1962, namely getting our population sedated to the point of not noticing or not complaining about our condition of servitude. So you see, the warnings have been there all along, but the voices of these prophets were drowned out by the corporate media. Fortunately, we now have the net, and things, hopefully, are beginning to change. And the reason things are changing, my dear friend, is because of you. I really don't think that you realize what a unique person you are. Every day I see people out and about who have earphones stuck in their ears, and my guess is that most of them are listening to music. And I do that myself, so I'm not putting down on listening to music. And in fact, I think it's even more important to listen to music than it is to listen to this or any other podcast. I don't know about you, but without music in my life, I doubt if I'd made it this far. And yet, right now, you and I aren't listening to music. We've just been listening to an ex-Harvard PhD talk about consciousness expansion and the evolution of human societies. Now, what's wrong with us? Why aren't we listening to something else right now? Well, the only answer I can come up with is that because you and I are a little different in how we think about life. Sure, we still enjoy all the joys and pleasures that our fellow humans do, but for some reason, we have this vague feeling of discontent that causes us to push the envelope of consciousness just a little further. Something in us just won't let us rest with the situation as it now is. You know the situation I'm talking about. The global population explosion, lack of resources, and living unsustainably, wars. Let's face it, the world's a mess right now, and on the face of it, there doesn't seem to be much that a single individual can do about it. And yet, here we are, thinking and talking about how we got into this pickle and how we're going to work our way out. Maybe we'll never do anything more than talk to our friends about these issues, but at least we're aware of what's going on, and at least we're talking and thinking about the human predicament right now. It may not seem like much, but in my humble opinion, it certainly does set you apart from the crowd, and I'm honored to be here in the salon with you and all of our fellow saloners, evolutionaries who are manning the front lines of consciousness. Or maybe we just like to alter our consciousness every once in a while with a little brain candy like the talk we just heard. Who knows? Well, that's enough philosophizing for now. Let's see what some of our fellow saloners are saying. One note comes from Chris, whose email represents the sentiment and several others I've also received recently. And here's part of what Chris had to say. I've found the path of using psychedelics for my own personal use quite a difficult path. even when I was living in the supposed heart of free expression in Australia, northern New South Wales. So having your podcast to listen to over the years has kept my hunches about psychedelics' usefulness, their ability to fundamentally touch core, and the way they reset my internal compass back to the me-you source. Chris, I might add, has been with us here in the salon from almost the very first podcast. And that fact alone tells me that I'm doing something right to keep you coming back for 145 programs. Just thinking about how loyal our fellow saloners are has raised my energy level significantly. Thank you all, not just for being here today, but for coming back every week. It's good to have you here. And another great place that you're going to find some of our fellow saloners is over at the forums at thegrowreport.com. Besides the Psychedelic Salon Forum, that is where you're going to also find over 30 other forums, including several for travel in various places around the world. On the Salon Forum over there are now over 100 threads with a lot of very well thought out postings to them. I was going to mention a few of the topics, but every time I've gone there to make a few notes, I wind up spending several hours lurking around many of the forums and participating every once in a while, but mainly just reading all of the wonderful comments people are making about some of our favorite topics. So if you haven't already been there, you might want to take a quick look to see if there's something of interest there for you. And you might be surprised at what you find out. For example, Sancho23 started a thread asking if anybody else lived in or near the Chicago area. And as a result of exchanging a few comments in that thread, we realized that we were both born in the same hospital, but quite a few years apart is my guess. Anyway, if you don't have a little clan of your own to meet with nearby, give the forums a shot, or try the Saturday afternoon Skype chat with our friends over at dopefiend.co.uk. Who knows, you might meet your next best friend that way. Well, I'd better cut this off for now and post this podcast before I find another reason to procrastinate. But it was really good being with you again today, and since we heard Dr. Leary recommend Terence McKenna in today's podcast, I think that we should hear from the good bard himself next week. So I look forward to being with you then for a little more brain candy from dear Terence. Until then, I'll close by saying that this and all of the podcasts from the Psychedelic Salon are available for your use under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 3.0 license. And if you have any questions about that, just click the Creative Commons link at the bottom of the Psychedelic Salon webpage. And that is also where you'll find the program notes for this podcast. And for now, this is Lorenzo signing off from Cyberdelic Space. Be well, my friends.